up gridding to your planetary alignment. It's extremely important in set positions. Okay. Now I've already drawn it out to actually see what you're seeing in attractions and locations all through its operation. Okay. Your projections of your body, how it goes to all lines of all communication setting a signal. As the avatar goes through the right lines into left, and set lines, the body goes in line communication setting attractions from its 24 set positions, its operations applications. All through configured settings, all through map, all through signal. Okay? But before you get into that, okay, you have to understand how to set it up. Okay, let's just get into 3 signals, location of 4 settings, attractions. Then we get into our primers, 3 centers of grounds of communication, all right? And then we come into all lines, bending space, and 3 lines of communication, lines of travel. Start with that ground lines sequence. Then we process the angles of points in travel communication settings, okay? And that communications and high lines of surface, okay? And the ground center locations to its travels. Doing it in all different angles and on position locations, settings, all the calculations. Okay? All right. So you have to truly see it on all different angles, how that's set up, how everything is set up in line condition settings. Okay, in that positions. Now once you get in that positions, you can cross the angles. Okay, you can cross the divots and transitions and locations with settings. Okay, so many ways of looking at this, but to understand how to bend space is to understand how to set up a grid. Okay, to your planetary alignment. Okay, and then you work within cycle. You work with the platforms inside attractions in this settings, also location. Okay, and once you understand that, you work outside line settings and location to systems. Okay, so it gets very complicated. So I'm showing you different levels how you can platitude this line connection system. So it's all about understanding how to set it up in provision to its locations, all through its flux and travel. Okay, all through its flux and travel. See, it's going around the clocking system, all through flux through travel, all through flux through travel. Okay, once you go fully around the cycle, you come into a clocking center. Process this, and location of its platform. Its bedding system lines of calculations to its travel, right? Now, as you set that up, you have to truly understand how this is all set up through its platform. Point graphs of 3 centers and set position lines of 6 over a square. That process the settings all communication system all through travel and direct lines of link over square root. And that communications is, using the sacred geometry's location system all through traction, all through travel, all through direction, right? And then you line signal it, you put it together in travel communications. Okay, you put it together, it brings it in set lines calculation setting. Comes in, it communicates the system all through surface, all through setting, all through calculation. Okay. Connecting does very powerful stuff. And we come into the cross lines and all lines of indication setting and travel, direct lines and link. Okay. And then we come into our platforms. We online the signals in 4 centers, a rotation setting to a road graph screen locations, creating the grid line. All right. And then you cross the angles and set lines of communication setting and calculation. Okay. But we first check it at all different angles. Okay. And you see it up close and set lines of travel. Okay. Gridding is extremely important to a planetary alignment. When it gets in that position, it comes in this setting. Okay. All right. So once you get in that surface, it's much easier to put it in design lines. You can have high line screens, flux over lines, rotation surface, positive indication setting, down cross location angles, and point communication of graphs. So there's so many ways to set position lines of travel. But creating the grid of a planetary alignment is extremely important in set position to its operation, all through its windows, all through its frames, and travel communication. There's your pyramid inside. Okay, so you can see your pyramid, right? Then we bring it in signal, and ground centers the surface and travel communication system all through operation. Okay, all through platform, all different angles, all line communication setting of surface. Okay, your teleportation vessel inside. But understanding the gridding is understanding how to create the planets around it. And set lines of one settings, one travels, 1 point graph, communication setting and convergence into one planet alignment 150 feet apart from its planet itself. So let's clock its system lines of travel and direct lines of link. Setting here and here, okay? Then we online centers, set a dimensional sail, offline standard rotation in circuit location system of Jupiter and set traction. Directing grounds, high lines of sequence, location system, all through platform, and mechanism location setting and calculation. Okay? All through schematics, all through a drawing, all through gridding. Holographic gridding is extremely important, guys. And really understand how to use that in all frame position lines of travel. That's just one indication system to one platform and 45 angles in travel. Okay? So there's always ways to look at this in different angles. For processing this is what you have to truly understand. How your body goes every second, every minute, every hour through a film strip. Okay, that the avatar sets up. Okay, so this is how it's done. You can actually say the avatar goes right to left. Okay, and the body goes through. Okay, right to left and the body goes through. Right to left and the body goes through. So each time it's going through a different portal of communication in this setting through all traction. It's set up in sequence. That's set up in panels, that's set up in operations applications. All through its windows, all through its frames, all through its coordinates, all through its longitude and latitude. All right, parallels, lines of defense, online sequence, online panels, processing and communication system, all through tractions. Okay, so it's going to get very complicated for the team now because they have to understand how to set up to a webbing system. Okay, so we get platforms of communication setting. Start with the A tracks. Okay, so let's just get a 4-box frame. Okay. So understand the box frame is understand the center frame. Split lines of anomaly, bending space of 3 centers of 4 angles and travel, right? Directing lines of 1, cross lines of 2. Okay. Directing lines of 2, cross lines of 1. Okay. Process lines of signal, process lines of division, process lines of signal, process lines of division. Okay, and locations. Setting course lines of channel, operation lines of sequence, location. Okay. Now in that calculation setting, you can see line screen adaptation system all through set position operation and cycle. Okay. So if you understand perspective, then you understand how to draw and set travel. You understand how to draw and set travel. Okay, it's very powerful stuff. When you come into the position, you can online signals, offline communications, inline course centers of travel communications. So it's a lot of fun when you just don't try to figure out how to draw things out, just draw it. Because it's already set location to its primary location setting at travel. But you always have to have a bedding. The process indicates the setting crossing angles, and that communication setting high lines of service, location system, all through travel. Okay, in direction, right? And you have your planet here in the operation sequence and locations. Okay? So your whole planet's here, right here, in set position. Okay? But you have an energetic dome there, right? So you bring that in and set travel. Okay? So these are the 3 pillars of light. Process indication on cross lines, high signal location system, all through travels, indirect lines of communication setting, and oppositions, online sequence line communication. All right. So I'm just showing you how to really do basic grounds, how to set up gridding in all formations. Okay. how to set up gridding in all formations. Okay, it's very important you understand that. All right, so once we get in that provision, okay, we understand the platforms is set in sequence. Now you always start out with your perimeters. Okay, 3 centers of travels, 1 signal line, 1 signal off, 1 signal grounds, 1 signal attractions, 3 signals lines of 1, 3 lines of 2 over track location. Okay, so it's just trying to understand how you get in mechanism lines and settings, all through flux, and 3 lines of course centers in perimeters and parameters and travel. Ground centers in sequence, panels operation lines, online centers in the rotation surface of travel. Directing ground centers online sync location setting and process calculation system to a Stargate and location system, all through attractions. So I'm creating a Stargate around this system. All through 7, all calculations in modification grounds. Online sequence and location. Okay. Processing the angles and knowing exactly how to use that information lines of ground communication to its surface. Because all communication setting and structure of design lines and its magnetic force of its map and system location of travel. So it indicates lines of flux, 45 angle rotation surface and travel communications. Directing ground centers and highline sequence. Now, to pop this out, you have to really understand how to do angle points. There's an angle point, right? And positions, there's a platform. Okay, processing that position of its bedding system, location of its travel. Crossing angles in that communication system, highlights the settings. So you work within the system of channel operation. Okay, and then you put it on a 45 angle. There's your windows of indication. All right. So always see it in all different angles and travel communications all at once. All right. And then you work within the platform inset location and settings, inside tractions. Set lines of 0. Set lines of 0, lines of 1. Set 0 lines of 2 over 3 over 4 over track position location and setting. Bring it out and set lines of signal. Okay. So it's very powerful what you're doing through door recognition time frame. There's the door. All right. So you're coming out of the door and process of indication. Okay. You work on platform, inset line course centers, directing line grounds, cross and overline signals, and rotation service and process calculation. Okay. So the more you see yourself in the simulation, the more you see the gridding, the more you see the provision, the more you see, the box frames. Everything's a box frame that you put yourself into travel. Okay, which is a window. And you are the observer looking outside the window. Okay, you're the observer. You're not inside or outside a box. You're just you looking at everything. Okay. You like what you see? Again, it's pretty simple settings, location to its systems, all through attractions. Move this in setting, move this in line setting. Then you can set up a formula of this set lines, 3 centers of signals, process line indicate lines, indicate system location of travel, set position all levels, have your simulation itself over here in travel. Okay. And then you bring it in. But you have to set up gridding. See, there's the game. Game set up. And all lines of all communications standing the platforms. Okay, and set travel. Recognize the time frame lines, directing lines of signals. There's another door that you go through in set position, 3 imaginations. And there's another door right above the system where you are through observation. 3 doors that go through, right? So that modifies your systems which are in travel. Okay? But see the open windows, right? See, this is what I got into as perspective, is to truly understand how to see everything location setting. For example, let's get into system locations. I did a picnic table, and I was trying to figure out how it's just a flat surface. That's a picnic table. For me to process it, okay, is understanding its angles of its platform to bring it into a table itself, a traction. Okay? So it's very powerful how you see a picnic table or a chair. Okay, it's very powerful how you see that in tractions. But you also have to understand the griddings of platforms, guys. All through angles, all through set position. Okay? And you can go like this. Look at that. Okay, but you're always seeing everything inside, you're seeing everything outside. So that's where you come into echo chamber, thermal, or anything through X-ray. But it's very powerful when you got in that positions. So it's amazing how you turn something from a flat surface into 3 or 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th or 11th or 12th dimension. It's all different layers. So you're bringing it out bold. And that process, that position is where you can do this in tractions. The set position. Have a ceiling. And have the grounds. Okay? And have the walls set up. Right? And you work with the grounds. And you work with the gridding. You angle, point, line each one and set traction locations. Oh, look at that. Disappeared. Okay? And you do the other side. And set position to its locations. Okay? It's very powerful when you understand gridding, guys, into your simulation. Okay? And then you can cross the angles. You can do it always in forms in that positions. There's a lot of things you can do in that positions. You can do it this way, in platform. Just know exactly what you're doing in travel. Okay? And then you basically look at all different angles of communication. What you set up in provision. Change the ground centers of surface locations. Okay? Bring in the box frame and set lines of travel. Coordinate the communication setting high lines of service set position of simulation. Core lines of travels and direct lines of link of communication setting of travel. Indicate line centers, work with inside the actual box itself. All right. So you work with the inside, outside of everything locations. So point graphs, 3 ground centers of service, 3 service location system of travel, set lines of 6 over 7 over 8 lines of 9. Process over lines, indicate over 2, 3, 6, and 8 lines of setting. So we put that together. There's a road graph screen, adaptations of flux over a set traction. Okay, then we process lines into a bedding. This is the bedding. Everything has to have a bedding, right? Okay, this is the bedding and set locations. That's the width, the length, and the longitude, latitude. Okay, it's set travel. Okay? So it's really working with inside the set position of the box itself and set lines of communications to its travel. See? Working with inside the box. But look at the longitude and latitude of the streaming you have. See what you can work with in the simulation? But you work with one box at a time, right? One window up front. And then you come into the door opens up. There's the door opening up, right? There's the door, right? There's the platform. Okay, and gridding of communication. Okay, so there's a platform here, and you're coming here, and you're walking out of the door. Okay. You're walking out of the door, and then you're here. Okay, you're here, right here, in set tractions. Okay, this is very powerful how you set this up, all through a box frame. Right, so you have 4 lines of panels, a process communication system all through setting, right? And then you can basically set up a planet here and cycle in locations, right? Archetypes, XC thousands above and signal. So you can see the galaxy and the other line signal. So there's a lot of things you can do once you understand provision lines and settings. The process indicates the system. Now you can change the formation lines of grounds, high lines of panels, process communication lines of angles. Change communication lines of grounds of server location system all through travel. All through indication. Okay? So it's very powerful when you set up your simulation. All through a box. All right? And look at the longitude and latitude you have in the streaming. So that's why I want you guys to focus on one focal point at a time and create it through an anomaly, all through gridding. All right, over here. Now you're over here. Okay? And again, you have yourself observing. Everything is that position. Always observer there outside the box. Observing everything. Okay? All right. All through this. Right? Inside the computer itself. Inside the computer itself. Okay? Inside the computer, guys. Inside the computer box. Right? All right. Now, and to understand the planetary alignment is understanding a bowl. Just the bowl itself. Right? And understanding what's inside the bowl. Okay? And understand the longitude and latitude of the bowl. The width, the length of the bowl itself. Okay? And understanding the grid cross lines, high lines, signals, and location system all through tractions. Okay? How you get perimeters and parameters and line screen adaptations of flux over setting. Process indicates the system to road graph screen locations. Okay? Now just a basic angle point graph that correlines as a portal communicates the system of surface and travel. Right? Signal lines inside travel in platforms and set lines of communication, 3 angles and 4 lines of communication. So, and crossing line angles into another location grid and inside rotation. Okay? Looking at this angle and rotation lines of surface and traction. Okay? Seen in all different angles of flux. Right? All different angles of flux. Okay, what's above, what's below, you know. Panels of operation line centers and road graph screen location system of travel. So you always have to set up your grids. Grids are extremely important. So you have to understand how to use your alphabetical settings and streamlines of indications and know exactly how to go through that setting lines of travel and the communications. Okay, so now we're going to set up the box frame lines. Okay, so we'll go with this set locations. Just do this inside line first. Start with that location, right? And then we go through the platform. Go through the platform first. All right. You always have to have your primer, which is the center line, which is the center sequence of transits over divots, information bits that goes through settings of travel. And then you get positions to your planetary alignment and set lines of travel communication. It rotates the cycles inside your travel in that communication setting to above signal location setting of travel. Okay, and then you work with the divots and line screen adaptations of flux inside communication. Set alignments, screen lines of processing, one signal cross location line communication setting to travel. Indicates course centers and centerline operation of clocking screen adaptations of flux that puts all angle points of structured division lines and gridding line screen adaptations of traction. Okay. Online signals, work with that inside location. Okay. But you always have to have a grid. You always have to have panels. Okay. In that position. Right. But you always have to have a window too, right? You're looking through a window. Everything's through a window, guys. Everything is through a window, processing through a window. Okay. And then you can set up another grid line centers above line in sequence. Or you can cross angles, go this way and travel in direct lines in opposite location setting in sequence. Okay, you can do whatever you want, but you're constantly going through a window frame of communication. Inside line settings, inside rotation. There you are right there. Okay. Set position. Okay, so try to get you to understand how to set up griddings and locks and screen locations setting to anything through solar attractions and direct signals of triangulation flux over setting. Okay, and you work within the triangulation. Remember, always start with one setting. Okay, work within the grid settings and circle. And flux over lines indicates here and here in set attraction. 3 lines of flux is set travel. Okay, structure of the building itself. Okay, so set course centers of yardage, the screen adaptations of flux over lines and webbing screen location. Comes in traction location system monthly setting. Okay. Work with inside lines. Blue in the center. Location grids, centers, and operation lines of sequence. Plasma points, direct lines of line communication. All right. And then you work with the parameters of security. Outside location. Okay, there's the web. There's the web. All right. But look at the longitude and latitude you have. See? That's why you constantly have to bring things in to know exactly what you're doing in traction. As the perimeters get bigger and bigger, the sonar offline signals outside rotation in track location, the Fibonacci. Okay? Online signals in rotation surface and travel. Okay? And then you set up A tracks, A over lines, C over C, D over E, E factors over 1, cross lines of 0 over 1, set course centers over 2, over 3 line signals, set course lines over 4, set lines of 0 point lines of 1, set position over 3, over line centers of travel. Okay, bring in set position which you're creating set line communication. All right, it's seen at all different angles in travel. Okay. So you get a point of view, know exactly how to set these things up in set position, location, and travel, and directions into sonar or anything echo, and screen locations, and set positions, to its operation setting and travel. Okay? Sonar detection. Line signals up. Pink in the center, operates signal location. 3 centers, process 3 triangulation lines of flux. Process 3 line singulation line condition lines of flux. Sets communication setting to your pyramid and rotation surface of travel. Bring it out. Look what you created, a pyramid. In the center operation. Okay, everything is center operation of view and settings, but it's amazing how you set that up in location. All right, but look at the bandwidth you have. All right. And there you go. Okay. Setting signals of and on centers and rotation surface and travel. Okay, bandwidths over lines, over cross location screen lines. Let's bring in some green out signal in location. Okay. Parameters and parameters lines set in location of sequence. Bring it out. Look what you created. Okay, and all different angles of flux and screen location. So I'm just showing you how you get into griddings in location setting and travel, how you come into that through all configuration system of the calculation. Right? Your webbing system, your genetic patterns, line signals, location setting, anything through sonar, anything through echo. Okay, know exactly what's going on, and then you move on to the next location. Start with that setting, it's above the signal locations, and you work on a different angle. Or green line, cross line, triangulation here. Start with that setting, right? And then you get positioned with the cloak and dagger, outside lines, and rotation surface and travel. Okay, and then you work with the gridding, 3 cross angles, 6 over perimeter, rotation, surface, and travel in that communication system, all line centers in communication center surface. Okay, and then you work inside the grid. Okay, and then you connect the line connection setting to its road. It's all set up, right, through a pyramid. Okay? So I'm going to work with this box frame. Okay? Everything box frame is a window frame, so it's much easier to see that lines of detection, location, system, and travel. Okay, so I work with line conditions of box and signal locations, 1 center lines, process over 2, process over 3, set track locations. Out signals and location setting. Okay. Lights coming attractions, online center, online sequence, probing, inline communication orbs, come in all direct location setting and signal. Okay, all through a pyramid and set travel. Inside communication. Inside the pyramid, guys. Look what you can create. Once you know what you're doing. Okay, colored in purple. Okay. You like what you see? Look what you're doing. Okay, then you move on to the next sector. Orange is sequence, purple over 1, purple over 2, purple over 3. Okay, direct lines, change angles, point line graph communications. Bring in indication lines and travel endpoint graphs in the calculation screen, location setting, and travel. Okay, signify ground center as a sequence and location setting, road graph screen, location of travel. Okay. All through setting, all through operation. Okay, so it's amazing what you can do. All through setting, but I'm just saying, look at all the bandwidth and longitude and latitude you have in streaming locations. When you bring it in, you can really see what you're doing in travel communications, all through indications. Okay. So it's going to get much easier, but you have to understand, how much bandwidth do I have? How much bandwidth can I use? How much do I need to understand? And all set position to its operation. All through tractions, all through locations. So you have to know your longitude and latitudes, or anything in line center location of gridding itself, or anything you see in projection locations of set positions. So it's all calculated modify. Inline screen adaptation of systems. Okay, all through indications of operation. Okay, so you work with inside the center of everything you see. See, you bring it in. That's what you're going to work with, just this. Okay, and then you work with inside, one volume at a time, one grid at a time, one grid at a time, 2 angles, 3 angles, 4 angles, 5 angles. Look what you created. Look what you created. All right. One thing at a time, guys. That's all it takes. One thing at a time. Okay. You like it, you move on. Let's cross the angles in 2 flux. Okay, bring it in. Work within the square. Look at that. Okay. Or you can work with the black square and set travel. So there's so many things you can do in set tractions and locations. All right. Now with that said, you can platitude and set positions and create grid lines into a pyramid location. All right. Grid lines and location setting to a pyramid setting. Bring it out, see what you've done in location. You like it, move on. So that's what I want you guys to do. Open up each window and focus on each volume, letter, number, shape, and symbol. Starting with that positions. Start with a letter. Let's just start with a basic letter. Okay, let's start with A. Start with A, right? This is A, right? So you work with the triangulation first, right? And you work with the inside. Okay, and platforms. Now, you work with this. Okay, that's what you work with. Okay, that's what you work with inside. It's not about drawing a picture. It's knowing exactly the picture's already drawn of all indication to its box. Each one is a window in its frame. So you connect the lines. You just connect the lines of the box frames all through platform, all through communications. Remember, everything is intelligence, guys, and the more you understand that, the more it gets easier in plateau. Okay? And then you line signal them down, line signal them down in location, and then you cross angles. All through setting, all through operation sequence. It's like connecting the dots. Okay, in both settings, different angles and travel. Okay, do the same thing. Consciously aware of what you're doing in travel is a process of communication system, how to put this all together, guys, through your griddings and set calculations, your pyramid, and its volume, and its mass. And then you work with the road graph screens at 3 angles. Set position. So that's working with inside now, right? See, it's outside, inside, inside, outside, right? And then you go into location grid. Very powerful stuff looking inside the pyramid as you're going through the platforms of communication system all through travel. Okay, so you're here, right here inside the pyramid, going inside, walking in. Okay, very powerful stuff all through a pyramid, right? Look at that. So the more you come into position, the more you understand how to do it through triangulation inside, all through a pyramid, right? So keep creating that story, and it gets much easier to understand how to go through the gridding. Process indicates the system all through tractions. But it's amazing when you see that. Inside and outside at the same time, right? And then you get another location grid here that you can go through. All right, so you cross this there. Here's the map, inside, and track location. Okay, to get to there, right? So once you're there, you're inside. Now you're going outside. Okay, but look what you can do from a pyramid, from inside and outside through mass and volume. One thing at a time, guys. One thing at a time. And then you can see it all together. Pretty powerful stuff, eh? How you create it through a triangulation. Oh boy. It gets much easier once you understand what you're doing in traction. Okay? And again, you have you observing everything already. You like what you see? Looks good, eh? But you're outside the triangle. You're not inside, you're outside of everything. So you're over here looking, you're over here looking, you're over here looking, you're over here looking. You're never outside, never inside of anything. You're just there, existing all at once, and all volume of all communication setting, observing everything in travel. Okay? But that's your focal point. Okay, the pyramid itself. Okay? Or its road. Different angles. See, you can see it on different angles. It's like a movie, looking through a movie screen. It's pretty amazing stuff when you just know exactly what you're doing in traction. Different layers, different communications of filming. All right. Amazing what you can do just through a triangle. All right. So I've just given you a basic understanding how to see that and focus on that. Get into that story inside. Focus on that one particular thing. Same locations of a 2. What do you want to work on? Let's work with the center up. And you work within the gridding. Inside tractions. Okay. Now you can go outside if you want. And you can go embedding if you want. You can cross angles if you want. So it's just basically understanding how to put this all together, guys. Set positions to your pyramid and travel. Okay. Gridding locks, screen lines, adaptations of flux over settings into positions. You can lengthen the longitude and latitude to the primer and circuit location and directions. Scales and communication lines and grounds of yardage and screen locations to its setting. Operate the signals, cross line angles, and point communication graphs. The set communications, all through direction. Okay, so you see the top and you see the bottom. The structure of the building. See? You see the top and the bottom, okay, of the building itself. And this is all done through all settings of just a 2. See? See it at all different angles too. See it from the top and the bottom. Bottom, top, top, bottom. So everything you're doing line signals of everything, circulation, rotation, and you're constantly creating this all through structure, all through design. I mean, all different angles. All different angles, guys. Okay, it's absolutely amazing when you know exactly what's going on with your drawing, that you're doing these things all through a 2. It's pretty amazing stuff, isn't it? Okay, so that's just there. Now let's add the 2 signals inside rotations. So it's webbing. Let's create its webbing through a 2. I know you guys are mind blown, but this is what you have to do. So you connect with the 2 through its consciousness. Okay. Set up the webbing in sequence. Okay, and bring it in. Okay. All right, there's the platform. There's a platform with the webbing. And you're right here. You know, this is you in your digital frame in this position, not in observing. Okay, that's you. And this is over you in observation here. Observing what you just finished doing. Okay? Like what you did. Come into purple lines. At infinity, webbing screen centers the 3 centers of travel. Okay, so that indicates you traveling to those locations. All right, let's bring it out so you get a better understanding. Amazing what you can create through number 2. All right, so I'm going to travel setting on mechanism lines, position over settings, fly over here, and fly over here, and fly over here. Okay? This is what you can do just through number 2. Create a story. Okay. Or its platform. Looking at another view, right? So another indication system. I was happy with that. Changes formation lines and grounds. Indicate here, here, and 3 centers over 4 retraction. Okay. So possibilities are endless, what you can do. Person here over here. Another person over here. Outside setting, which is outside location of nebula. Not on the grid, off the grid. And the provisional locations of pink. Intelligence in here in frame. And line condition setting, all levels and travels. Again, the position lines and calculation setting. All through operation. Okay? You bring it out, see what you've done. Okay? Look what you can create through number 2. Simulation. Create a simulation at any level. But you understand how to set up through a grid. And all that communicates to the system all through surface. And all different angles of flux. Okay? There you go. There's the 2. All right, so that's what you have to work on. Okay? Work for inside, outside of everything. Okay? It's really powerful when you just let your mind go and just don't think about it. Just try to get in positions to know exactly what you're doing as you're setting up a different simulation game in your system interactions all through travel, all through a window. Everything's processed through the window. Okay? It's pretty incredible what you can create through number 2, eh? All different stories, all in one. See? Look at the building itself. The top and the bottom. Look at the bottom. Look at the top and the bottom. There's your intelligence right there. Okay. There's the neck. There's the body. Okay? So that's what you have to do, is just have fun. You know exactly what you're doing. Right? Bring yourself in again. Through observation. Okay? So you're always seeing through an open window, guys. And you create it from inside, or whatever you're going to do. Simplifies everything, right? Everything has to be an open window. Once you process that, then you understand this, what your body's going through, different levels of space and time. As it goes through seconds, minutes, and hours, as the avatar sets it up. And the body has to go through that projection. All through frames in set position. Okay? But it's amazing when you set up gridding. It's incredible when you know what you're doing. Okay? So this is going to help you out a lot more to know exactly how to set up a grid and how to just look at a triangle and ask yourself, how can you do that? How can you create this through a story? Well, it's easy to understand it through a window frame. And you're always outside of everything, but you're always the presence of everything and what you're bringing in through the simulation. Okay? It is amazing, isn't it? Because that's how you have to start to see everything. It's just as an open window, and you are the observer of everything you're doing. But look what you can do through number 2. Just the number 2. Create a story. Right? That's what you got to get into, is your imaginations. Right? Create a city in a number 4. We got into that before, right? Number 4. Well, you have to understand the gridding. Okay, the gridding. Okay, you always have your pyramid though. Process here, plot from here, plot from here, plot from here. Okay, now it's a 7/1. Setting over flux over 3 centers of travel. Location grid. Here's the door. Okay, here's you walking through the door. Okay, here's the platform. Okay, here's another door. Location grid. Okay, so from here to here to there. There's a triangulation here to here to there. There's your map. Okay, so then you open another door, which is another portal. And you go through there. Jump through here. All right, and you come from the other side. And you come from this side, and you're over here now. Go from one portal to the next. Okay, but you're always creating it through a window frame. Everything you look at is a window frame. Okay, and you're always outside a location, observing everything. Okay. So that's going to help you a lot more to understand how to do this. So you get a really better way of seeing things all through a window frame. How you come in that position to this settings, into that set location, inside travel. Okay, create a story. That's what you have to be consciously aware of. And when you're consciously aware, you realize every letter, number, shape, and symbol is its own story. Okay, has its own setting and location system, has its own space-time and operation setting, has its own set travels, has its own communications of flux, has its own clock and foundation settings. Okay, has its own alter ego, has its own costume, and has its own setting of its story of activation. It's very powerful stuff when you start to identify that line communication setting, a 2 is not a 2. It's much more than that. Same with the letters, numbers, shapes, or symbols, anything you're dealing with in set positions. It's so easy to create a Fibonacci into a story. Okay, you already see 6 and 9, so you do this, you do that, and you work with this, you work with that, and you do this, you do this, you do this, and you do that. Look at that, boom. Look what you created through a Fibonacci. Okay, and then you just set the griddings, set the panels, but everything is in a window frame. Okay, and then you basically, you have to understand the box frame, window frame. Okay, box frame with a window frame or another window frame. Work with inside the box itself. And set positions and travels in that communication setting a surface. Okay? Because that's all it is. It's nothing but a story that you're creating. Okay? It's all you're doing. Through a door. Here's a door. Here's the platforms of the door to go through. Okay? So it's much easier once you understand what you're doing in travel. How to set that up in your own system locations. All through setting, all through operation, inside traction. Okay? And again, you're always outside observing everything. Okay? So that's going to help you how you see this through observation and this through perception, how you see things in transitions. But it's amazing when you just really understand how you can see things in all ways and frames of story, all through triangulation. Look how powerful it is, guys. Look through the open window. You're outside of everything, but what you're creating is everything in set position. How you want to set things up. All through provision. Okay? Very powerful stuff. All right, that's it. Just giving you a basic understanding how you have to start identifying everything of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols has its own story in set travel. Okay, how you can create that through a 2 or how you can create that through triangulation, but you work with one volume at a time. One setting is all volume. And how you get in that position is much understanding how to create that through its grading system. All through tractions, all through provisions, or anything your planetary alignments and travel. Okay? Adios.